So, salvation is our means of reconciliation back to God. We know from what we've talked about that since we're sinful, we can't be in God's presence in that state because He's so holy. However, through Christ's death, that got fixed. We can have that reconciliation back to God through that. The way I think of it is that each of us has a ratio of redemption to the bad stuff we do in life. And if we achieve a certain ratio, then we get into heaven. Obviously, though, whatever that ratio is, none of us can achieve it on our own, which is why Christ had to come and die. Which, when He came, He did no wrong, so in His denominator He had a 0, but He still suffered the consequences of doing something wrong. He still experienced the punishment, death, that it takes to redeem a person from their sins. But in so doing that, basically, He had a number over 0, which is either infinity, mathematically, or if you type it into your calculator, it registers as an error. So basically, what Christ did is He blew a hole in the fabric of reality through which we can escape the punishment for our sins. Or, another way of thinking of it is that He produced an infinite amount of salvation that He can distribute to each and every one of us as He so chooses. And so then the trick is to get Him to distribute it to us. And that's where the union with Christ thing comes about. When we abide in Him, as John puts it, when we live our lives with Him, that's when we get to share in that infinite salvation. That's when that salvation that He has gets distributed to us, and we're able to make it to heaven in the end. This idea started to become more real to me this summer as I came across what we sometimes call the scariest passage in the Bible, Matthew 7:21. Not everyone who says to me, Lord, Lord, will enter the kingdom of heaven, but the one who does the will of my Father who is in heaven. On that day many will say to me, Lord, Lord, did we not prophesy in your name, and cast out demons in your name, and do many mighty works in your name? And then I will declare to them, I never knew you, depart from me, you workers of lawlessness. Which obviously we think is scary because it seems like a lot of really great people are not being let into heaven, and that doesn't seem right. But what I came to realize, this is kind of like Jesus letting us off the hook, that it really doesn't matter what we do with our lives. What He wants from us is for us to know Him. Again, going back to what John calls abiding in Him. He wants us to live our lives along with Him, that as we go through our lives, we're getting to know Him, we're spending time with Him, talking to Him in prayer or reading His Word, getting to know Him that way. And so, I realized that it doesn't matter if I'm a missionary or how many people I convert or how charitable or anything I am. God's not looking for those sorts of things. The way you experience salvation is through a relationship with Jesus Christ. And that's something you can do regardless of the actual events that are in your life, whether you're an engineer or a physicist or whatever you do. Any of those things can be a way to get to know Christ. So really, it was a huge relief to realize the actual events of my life don't matter, but in whatever I do, if I'm pursuing God, if I'm getting to know Him, growing in my relationship with Him, that's all Christ wants from me in order to experience salvation.